Hi, I'm Preeti Sharma from the Ananta Centre, and today our guest for the podcast is Mr. Otto Pukk, the CEO of Incap. Welcome, sir, to the Arohana podcast. Would you like to start off with introducing yourself first?
So I'm Otto Pukk. I'm president and CEO for Incap Corporation. We are a listed company. We are listed on the Nasdaq in Helsinki, and we deal in electronics. So we produce electronics for different companies that have a need. And we have factories all over the world in UK, in US, in Germany, in Estonia, Slovakia, Romania, and three big factories here in India, in Tumkur, near Bangalore. So over 2,000 people for Incap works here in India today.
We'll start with the first question. Incap operates in a rapidly evolving electronics manufacturing ecosystem. How do you see the global electronics supply chain changing over the next decade?
Change is something we need to get used to. Is it pandemics, or is it component shortages, or is it different kind of geopolitical, I would say, challenges that we are facing? So change, I think, is part of the supply chain. But what we see is, and this has started already, I think, a decade ago, is that manufacturing is moving out from China. European and American customers want to diversify their manufacturing. And here, of course, from Incap perspective, this has been very positive for us and helped us to develop, for example, our Indian operations and be able to grow. I think this kind of diversity that you want to balance the portfolio, that will continue, and we will also see, I think, a little bit more of localization, not globalization, but localization in manufacturing, as there is a security and so aspect also coming in to manufacturing, that you don't want perhaps countries that are not democratic and perhaps don't share your common values to produce critical infrastructure or defense products.
How do you think geopolitical fragmentation and the China plus one policy is reshaping opportunities for companies like Incap?
No, as I said, I think it gives opportunities, and I think that business becomes more and more value based. And if you look at now this trade deal that we are discussing during this forum here today, I think that is also a good example of common values coming together. Because you should not forget, India is the world's biggest democracy. And together with EU, we share this belief in democracy. Many other big countries in Asia are not democracies; they are totalitarian run, and of course. Manufacturing is in a sense by giving trust to somebody, trust them with your products and trust them with your technology, and I think that this kind of value-based business will be bigger and bigger, and that is driven by the geopolitical situation and so in the world.
Do you think India is currently ready to compete with China in manufacturing, or do you think that's an overstated narrative?
I think that is an overstatement currently. China is far ahead when it comes to manufacturing and so, but India is getting there, I must say, and the 10 years I've been now involved in India directly, then you clearly see a development and the things are moving in the right direction. It will take time, and the time also is due to that India is a democracy, that you can't top run and take decisions in like perhaps some of the decisions made in China's development, that you can fast track it. So it will take a little bit time, but India is on a good way.
Where do you think India is currently lacking?
I wouldn't say lacking. I think it needs time. It needs time to build the different kind of, how to say, value chains that are needed. In electronics, for example, we focus very much on the talk, or the politicians talk very much about semiconductors and so. But semiconductor development is good. I know one of the big companies here in India now also is developing. But one must understand that first of all, where does the raw materials come, and then if you go downwards, for example, the same kind of Indian semiconductors, where does the wafers come from, and so there's still a dependency on China and so in that. The other thing is that semiconductors alone is not enough. You need to have a full ecosystem of around it with bareboards and components and EMS companies like Incap to manufacture it, and so even if you or can do the component or the semiconductor itself, then that's not enough to be self-sufficient and from a security point of view or whatever it is, sustainable in producing electronics. So it's much more complex, and we see this development now in Europe. There is a debate on how European electronics manufacturing could be focused on and built up again on defense products and security and critical infrastructure and so. But also in Europe we are far behind in competing with China or replacing China today.
As you mentioned that Incap works in multiple countries, so I just wanted to know, I'm sure you've noticed some sort of cultural differences between the multiple countries that Incap works in. Do you believe that the working culture in India is beneficial to India catching up in manufacturing, or do you think there needs to be some kind of shift?
No, I think working culture in India is good in that sense, and what India has is a lot of skilled engineers and good engineers and like my colleague said that during the colonial time the Brits only left two good things, and that's the English language and cricket in that sense. And I strongly believe that as well, that the English language is key thing, but also the Indian education system. There's excellent engineers coming out and looking at the work ethics or the culture, working culture. I think Indians are really good in that sense. Of course, working around the world and in different countries, and so then I have understood that it is always differences and there's nuances and so. But the fundamentals, the core values of people, and so those are universal. What is good and bad, and what is right and wrong, and so is often not questioned by what kind of ethnicity you have or religion or whatnot. You will find a way to understand it. But as it always is with cultures and communication, you need to have a discussion, and communication is always two ways, that you need to make yourself understood. But I don't see that the Indian culture by any mean would hinder the development. In the contrary, I think there's very good people here and have good work ethics.
Do you think semiconductors are going to become the new oil of geopolitics?
As I said before, I think semiconductor in that sense, it's we talk about it a lot, and the politicians talk about it a lot, but it's too simple to do like that. First of all, as I mentioned, the raw material, there need to be a control over that. Otherwise, we will still have a great dependency on just a few countries in the manufacturing. And the other thing is that semiconductors are not enough. For example, if you look at today, where I think India needs really to develop it is bareboard manufacturing, the pure PCBs. Yes. Those are going into every product, and now today there is some industry here, but the quality is not on the level. So if you need to do advanced electronics, you still are importing these bareboards from China, and I think that here we need to focus and understand that it's a much broader picture. You need the entire ecosystem to manufacture electronics, and looking only at semiconductors is to simplify. It's the cherry on the cake, but you need the cake as well to get fed.
Do you think government incentives like PLI are enough to make India globally competitive?
And that, of course, the future will tell. I think the government incentive programs so far and so in India have been very good, and giving back a lot of direct investments and so on. And from an Incap perspective, have helped us in our investment decisions and so. So I think that the Indian government is doing a good job there in boosting the manufacturing in India, and I think the Made in India concept in the big picture is a very good policy, and have also helped companies like us who manufacture for others in that sense that in a lot of ways. So I think it's on a good way, but how effective and so then let's see the future will tell.
According to you, are the real bottlenecks in scaling electronics manufacturing in India? Do you think it's policy, talent, infrastructure, or capital?
I wouldn't say that. I think all of those are available in that sense. I think time is the key here. China started their investments into industry and into becoming a world power in manufacturing, and so many years ago. And I think that as I mentioned before, that India as a democracy will move naturally slower than a totalitarian state, and it will take some time. Otherwise, I don't think that there is hindrance. I think there is capital, and I think there is government support, and I think also there is a market, a huge growing market in terms of India, but also now with the trade deal done with EU. Basically, I think the GDP of us together, EU and India, is like 25% of the world or something like that. So it's a huge market and possibility. Everything is there, but things take a little bit time. And what I think is also key is that building up an industry, we need to have a holistic approach. So we need to address the entire supply chain and the entire value chain, not only talk about semiconductors and hope that will make it.
We'll shift the focus to Europe for a little bit. With the current geopolitical instabilities and Russia-Ukraine crisis, how has that affected domestic politics in Europe, and how has that affected doing business in Europe?
I think security and defense have come up as a topic, and we lived in some kind of a false calm state of calm before, and thought that everything was after the Cold War nice and easy, but clearly it's not, and I think that defense have come up, and also I think that, as I mentioned before, we are talking about making electronics in now for defense and security, critical infrastructure in Europe, because Europe is very much dependent on China and dependent on electronics manufacturing from outside. And now the debate has come up again that we need manufacturing in Europe. It will take time. Even if we start today, and we have started in some extent, it will take, I would guess, 30-40 years before we have a big impact. But the mentality shift is there, and I hope that will stay. So I would say that is the biggest difference in making business in Europe, that there at least is a dialogue of made in Europe.
Yeah. But what advice would you give yourself or to other, when you were younger, or to other kids that are just starting out in their career, for what they're supposed to look forward to, what kind of attributes they should adopt, and just what they should look forward to?
I think that you need to take some chances. Like thought through way still. International experience, nobody can take away from you. Even if you go to some other country and perhaps even work in a somewhat lower position than you would at home, you still get an international experience. And that I think is important in the world today, where we see more and more people moving around, and you work in teams with people from different cultures, and so that would, but then to believe in yourself and be patient. Patience is something people are lacking today, and I look at my own kids as well, and it seems to be, but things take time, and you need to be patient sometimes to get success, and so, but perhaps that is what I would give. So try to get the international experience and patience, believe in yourself. And in the end of the day, work is not also everything. You should have a private life, and then get kids, and enjoy life, and money is not everything.
Thank you so much for being part of this podcast. And with that, we conclude this podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you
And
for
I hope
having
you
me.
had a good